Your designation is, which is quite interesting for us, regional marketing for Middle East and Africa.
Brand awareness, demand generation, pipeline acceleration, as well as customer engagement. MoEngage as a solution while selling to India or US. We used to talk a lot about our advanced analytics and AI capabilities. Because at the end of the day, if I compare our company to say 4 or 5 others in the same domain,
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the new episode of Unwrapping Marketing, one piece at a time. Today, we have Nikhil Mirashi, Head of Marketing Middle East and Africa, MoEngage with us. Nikhil, I would love for you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit on your background and how you started your journey. So this will probably help us understand much better. Again, right, the Nikhil is regional marketing head, so there's a bit of learning here for us. We'll probably learn how to do marketing for Middle East and Africa from Nikhil. Nikhil, over to you.
thanks, Karthik. Absolute pleasure being on this podcast with you. Heard a lot about you and Revv Genius, so I think it would be great for me to talk about my experience. So, in a brief, I'll just introduce to your audience. I come with roughly 14 years of experience, most of it in B2B marketing. I have done multiple roles, so right from setting up the marketing function, right from processes, hiring, and working directly with the CEOs for 0 to 1 startups. Post that, I've also worked with high growth companies like Freshworks, Clever Taps, and right now MoEngage, where I've been part of huge marketing teams, reporting to the central marketing CMOs and probably taking care of a certain segment or a certain region. When it comes to my skill sets, being an integrated marketer is something which excites me, which means covering all aspects of marketing, but working closely with other GTM stakeholders like sales, customer success, and SDRs. So that's me in brief.
Got it. Okay, so your designation is, which is quite interesting for us, regional marketing for Middle East and Africa. So when you say regional marketing for Middle East and Africa, how is it different from other marketing? And I also want to understand, a lot of SaaS companies that focuses on, let's say, India or Europe and US, right? Predominantly, US GTM is a lot of focus for a lot of companies. So what happens in regional marketing? How is regional marketing different, and what kind of campaigns you run on regional marketing, and what works especially in these regions?
Perfect. This is a good question. So the way I would break this is typically after a company reaches a particular size, it needs to expand itself into different geographies. So initially, let's say a 1 to 20 size company might have a central marketing team which does everything for the global audience. But after a point, they need to expand into different markets. And now every market or every geography has a particular nuances. So even if you might have a product which has a global consideration, there are certain aspects from communication, the maturity, the cultural nuances, the language, which are different for every market. And this is where regional marketing comes into the picture. To describe a regional marketer, I would say a regional marketing head is like a mini CMO who takes all aspects of marketing, right from brand awareness, demand generation, pipeline acceleration, as well as customer engagement for a particular set of markets. So they tend to work closely with the local sales teams, the local customer success teams, and work on those goals. Now, to differentiate between, say, a central or a global marketing team, and what is the difference in a regional? So, while a regional marketer would cover all aspects of marketing, so right from your brand, your content, your field, your events, your digital, the difference is typically in terms of the central content, the central website, marketing ops. So those are the things a regional marketer typically doesn't have to handle, but they need to take all those aspects and convert them into the market specific nuances. A best example would be, let's say, a company like MoEngage. At a global level, India or US could be their main markets. So the kind of features or the kind of industries they would be engaging that would be very different from, say, a particular pocket in Middle East. Middle East, we might not be able to cater to an industry like banking or finance due to certain regulations, compliances, or the way those industries are structured. So how do you take that product into that market? The other angle is the language. So maybe a mature market like India or US might believe or might prefer technically superior language, communications, or a way how features or products are displayed or manifested. However, when you come to a newer market, which is slightly less mature on the technology side of things, where say the digital transformation angles are still coming up. This is where you might slightly need to dumb down the product in terms of basic use cases, making it more holistic or more generalistic. A best example here would be advanced analytics or advanced analytics use cases like AI would be very much relevant in a market like India for us. However, when it came to Middle East, we experienced a lot of companies were still at a slightly lower end of the curve. We're still looking for basic solutions. So basic workflow management, automations, and all of that. And this is where the role of regional marketer comes in.
Got it. So how's doing marketing in US India is different from let's say regional marketing when you're marketing for Middle East and Africa. So what kind of channels work there? Like can you talk a little bit of in terms of what works in Middle East and Africa? What kind of channels work? How is the mindset of the people there, right? So can you probably based on your experience, can you explain that a little bit?
Great question, Karthik. So I'll also derive some insights from the earlier question that we spoke about and maybe continue answering this. So as I said, if you look at India or US as markets, in terms of technological maturity, they are slightly ahead on the curve. What this means is when we market to different prospects, they already have some understanding of the technology solutions that we try to sell to them. So the kind of queries, the kind of solutions they look for, they could be slightly ahead. Say an AI based feature which probably might not work in the Middle East. This is where we were kind of discussing around it. So, how does this impact marketing? Is the kind of language that you would use in your collaterals, in your email communications, even at your booths or wherever you go on the field. It has to be slightly dumbed down. So, just to give you an example, MoEngage as a solution while selling to India or US, we used to talk a lot about our advanced analytics and AI capabilities. But when it came to the Middle Eastern countries, we felt that the companies or prospects there were still looking for a basic marketing automation suite, which had the basic, say, the workflows, the automations, and the basic kind of database management capabilities. Most of the advanced capabilities were good to have, but were maybe not required for them at that stage. They just had to get their basic sanity in place. This also impacts the different channels. So, just to give an example, WhatsApp is heavily used in the Middle East. A lot of
Hmm.
people they might ignore your emails, but they respond very quickly on WhatsApp. Is there a good way to use WhatsApp? Now, obviously, what you do on emails might not happen on WhatsApp. So the strategy is very different. It's mostly
Right.
one-on-one. It has to be personalized. The second trend we are seeing is the increased adoption of social media, both in terms of video as well as LinkedIn. So today, irrespective of the language barrier, we see most of our prospects being actively working on LinkedIn. And that's why LinkedIn has shown us good results. However, it depends on how you use LinkedIn. If you're using LinkedIn for direct response campaigns, then again,
Hmm.
the results are going to be very poor because it's enterprise SaaS. You cannot expect people to click on ads and buy your software.
Hmm.
However, if you're using LinkedIn to reach the audience, so maybe to create an awareness about the company, probably educate them on different content you have prepared, or maybe on different features you are releasing, that is where LinkedIn has come to be a very good platform for us. The third aspect of LinkedIn is more on a personalized or organic one-on-one LinkedIn. So I, as a marketer, try to build a lot of my database or network on LinkedIn, be it a set of prospects, be it a set of customers. And that actually helped us get a lot of traction. So I would personally talk to them, engage with them. My content would be consumed by them. So rather than going or following a company's page, if people who are working in the region, say your AEs, your SDRs, or someone like me who's handling marketing, then our posts would get more interaction, more traction, and that would eventually reflect in the way they were doing business with us. So that would say increased leads, increased sales cycles, and all of that. So that is one aspect we saw. And one common thing which has been observed in the Middle Eastern is in-person relationship matters a lot to them. They are not very fond of say remote buying. So it's unlikely that you do a call and they'll have the everything done across on a remote kind of thing. So events, physical relationships, meeting in persons. So all those kind of things really work. One thing that doesn't work is webinars. I have seen that whenever we have tried to sell to US audiences or maybe slightly Western countries, webinars
Hmm.
have gained a lot of traction. So people do attend webinars, they show interest, they have interacted with us. However, in this region, people, even if they sign up, you really find it hard to people to actually turn up on the webinar. So webinars have more or less been utterly useless for us in this region. So those are some of my high level thoughts on it. One thing to add here is a lot of people often ask me, does paid social media or paid digital work? Answer again is depends. It depends on the way you use it. If you're going to use Google search for high intent, you're not going to get demo requests. However, if you're going to use them, say, for account based engagement, for content distribution, or maybe at a lower bottom of the funnel level where you're bidding against competitors, this is where it can help you get people on your website and enter into a sales cycle. So don't expect Google Ads to give you direct revenue, but it will be one of the major contributing factors in the entire set of multi-touch point attribution. That's what I would say.
Got it. So can I consolidate this and say that you also tried a lot of Google Ads, LinkedIn at some level, a lot of events, right? So these are, can I assume that these are the three main channels for creating demand there or capturing demand, especially for Middle East and also Africa?
Yes. And in a way,
Got
one
it.
thing which probably spans across all of this is content. So one thing that really worked well for us was a regionally themed campaign. So content that was made for the region. So using local brand names, local imagery, local cultural nuances, say like festivals or names of organizations, or using local heads of business or people from our prospect companies. That actually helped us get a lot of traction. Because at the end of the day, if I compare our company to say 4 or 5 others in the same domain, the difference was a lot of them had centralized content which was mostly catered to the Western audiences.
Hmm.
So people in the market really enjoyed that we were taking this effort to give them content based on the region, and it showed us that we had a skin in the game. We were dedicated and committed towards the region, and that was one of the biggest factor in helping us get more traction with them. So content spans across all the other areas that we mentioned, be it events, be it digital, be it rest of the things.
Okay, how did you kind of use this content, right? So did you distribute it or you kind of brought in, people, high intent, medium intent leads, and then you're saying that these content kind of used in terms of conversion? How did you use the content, right? What is the? Can you explain that a little bit? Uh,
Yes.
how did you
So
use the content to one convert and also bring in more top of the funnel?
right. So as I said, MoEngage was operating for a good 7-8 years before we officially entered this market, which means that we had a lot of content. But none of that content really spoke to the audience in this market. So the
Hmm.
first thing we started was, how can we localize it? Can we use some of the local brand names, say existing customers, or maybe we could give examples from companies in our space who are doing well. For example, we were in the marketing automation space. So if we want to share some good marketing examples, rather than sharing them from the US companies, we try to bring in something from the Middle Eastern companies, how they are doing, what are their strategies, what have worked. So those are some aspects. Second is, we had a lot of benchmark reports based on surveys, based
Hmm.
on actual usage adoption of those who are using MoEngage as a platform. So we tried to slice and dice as content from the countries in Middle East and Africa. So that gave them a different report rather than looking at global statistics. Now these reports are benchmark surveys, say an email benchmark survey, say a
Hmm.
push notification benchmark survey. Those were now more region specific. And this is where people started uh, grabbing or consuming our content. And that helped more and more people come to us, be it in terms of downloading content, be it increasing the traffic on our website. The third angle was local festivals, local cultural nuances. For
Hmm.
example, we piloted a series called Ramadan Bites. It was
Hmm.
something which we hadn't done earlier, and Ramadan is a big time in the region, be it from shopping activity, be it from entertainment, be it from travel. And most of the consumer brands try to use that period to increase their sales. Obviously,
Hmm.
it's a holy month, so it is not exactly a festive kind of spirit, but the consumption does increase because people have needs, people try to use all of those things. So that was a period we thought, why not leverage it? So Ramadan Bites as a topic or a theme was started. It included different hubs. So it was a
Hmm.
series of blogs. Then there was a series of interviews from different people who were
Hmm.
marketing to the region. So it could be a travel company, it could be
Hmm.
a classifieds company, it could be an OTT platform, it could be an e-commerce company, and all of those. So the audience would love to hear from people who are actually practicing rather than someone like a software seller like us. So the interview series kicked off. in parallel to the interview series, we had a series of podcasts which talk about specific Ramadan campaigns of these people, and that was something which was gobbled up well. The other angle was distribution. So the people we featured in these interviews and podcasts, we created special crafted social posts for them to share on their networks. And that actually gained a lot of traction. So the social engagement increased. And we saw that during that period, the traffic volumes to certain sections which were talking about these topics was really high. That also helped in the lower organic social for us, especially for those kind of posts. So we saw the uptick in, say, website traffic, social engagement, and slowly the gated content. Obviously, as a philosophy, we don't gate a lot of content, but there are certain aspects we get it. Say, like creating a collection of all of this interview and podcast into a PDF that someone could download in a jiffy. So all of that work. And down the line, when we assess, say 3 or 4 months down the line, we saw most of the prospects who had become leads or who had come into SQLs had somewhere consumed this content, which probably was not happening earlier. And the third angle was trying to get feedback from them in a ad hoc manner. So when someone came in as an inquiry or when sales would meet people, as a marketer, I would ask them, can you ask them, what have you read about us? What have you seen about us? And the common thread we found was your content is awesome. And people would
Correct.
not say it, or it was not recorded anywhere in our CRM because some of them is not gated. But when people come out and say that we love your content, both from a technical standpoint, both from a regional standpoint, we love some of the social stuff you're doing. It is mostly creative, it's a lot of funny, it's not very preachy, it's not boring. And that actually gave us validation that what we are doing was working. So those are some things on the content that help.
Correct. Okay. Can you talk us talk to us in terms of how field marketing helped with Meena especially, right? So a lot of us have probably seen that field marketing is coming back. That a lot of the companies are putting a lot of effort on getting the field marketing right. How do you think it's very important? And do you think field marketing is the number one channel for Meena, or how has it worked for you in previous companies and in MoEngage also? So love to hear your thoughts, because a lot of us have that notion of thinking that, especially when it comes to Middle East, right? Uh, People, you also mentioned in the earlier in the podcast that people want to meet people, they don't connect, they don't convert on Zoom calls, right? How important is it is to kind of think about field marketing holistically, even for pipeline acceleration, and even for sourcing new opportunities, right? How has it worked for you in the previous company, MoEngage?
Awesome. Thanks for this question. So I would say field marketing has always been a major part of my roles, especially when it comes to regional marketing. Now, one thing I would like to make it clear for the audiences is sometimes field marketing, very similar to product marketing, is often confused. So field marketing is not just events. That is, in my opinion, field marketing is much more beyond events. Events or the real in-person things is just one part of field marketing. For me, field marketing is bringing your product or service to a segment which is a part of a sales territory. It could be a smaller territory, it could be a group of countries, or it could be one country. And then how do you bring it to the set of audience in that country? So when it comes to field marketing, apart from events, it could be, as I said, your content, your press releases, it could be digital. And then the biggest part, which today a lot of companies are focused, is account-based engagement. So you have a named set of accounts, and how do you pursue activities meant to engage them so that they could be either brought into the funnel or maybe the pipeline could be accelerated. So those are all of the things I count under field marketing. As you rightly said, Middle East is very relationship driven. People believe in the touch and feel aspect of it. And that is why not just myself, but a lot of my colleagues in this space have experienced that events have generally tended to give you a better return. Say, for example, if you attend a trade show in India, maybe the direct returns from that investment would be lower as compared to doing something in the Middle East. Obviously, things are expensive here, so you have to map the return accordingly. But there is a general trend of people to come attend this industry expos, be seen out there. So that is one thing. Second thing is, being on the field actually gives your audience a confidence that you are there in the market for good. It's not as if you are an overnight company doing something digital. So you get to see the people, actual people behind the company. You get to see their presence. You get an experience of working with that person. And this is where something I think this market particular loves. So apart from the in-person sales angle, even this marketing angle has helped. Now, talking about events, I will break them into three angles. So, one was events purely meant for brand awareness. Let's say I had to open up a new market, say Saudi Arabia, where we didn't have a lot of traction. So, if you go there directly as MoEngage and call people to your event, the likelihood of success could be slightly lower because people might not have heard about it. So the best way to do for a newer market could be attend an event or maybe exhibit at an event which has a high footfall. So it could be something like a Leap Saudi or a Wipe Martech Fest, where people, third party media publications already get in a lot of your audience, already bring in reputed speakers, and they create a huge buzz around it. So people tend to come out there. The other advantage about the Middle East is most of these countries, typically there is only one city where all of these events happen. So you don't have to go around distributing your events across. Say in a market like US or India, there would be at least 5 or 6 cities where different events would happen. So the audience is distributed. But say in the Middle East, if you're targeting UAE, all events tend to happen in Dubai and people would come there. Traveling is not a big issue. Similarly, Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. So the best advantage is if you are at an event, you are likely to cover all of the target accounts that you are pursuing. So that's the biggest help. So that was around the brand awareness part of it. So people come, they experience it. And if you have done a reasonable good job in the aesthetic part of it, or maybe you get a speaker slot, so people tend to view you in a different perception rather than just being an online presence. Now, the second part is demand generation. So apart from these large scale expos like say a GITEX or a Leap, you start looking at industry specific conferences. So there are certain conferences like the Retail Summit or something as an e-commerce or customer experience summit. So these are niche events meant for either a particular domain or a particular industry. Smaller events, say roughly 200 odd people as opposed to thousands in an expo. People are more in a confined space. They come here for learning, networking, and sessions. So these events actually help you to get more, say, traction in the funnel. So people will come, they'll talk to you about their pain problems. They are actively looking to watch a demo in these kind of events. In an expo, people will just come, maybe collect cards, collect your gifts, and go away. They don't have really time to talk to you at a business point. But these middle-sized conferences have been proving to be very useful in terms of getting niche audiences, perfect ICPs, and talking about, say, themes which are in vogue. Say something like a generative AI for marketers. This is a topic that could be a session. This is where you can be a part of it. People would come ask follow-up questions. And a lot of times, if you're able to get a panel or a speaking session, we have experienced that post that session, the footfall to or both would increase. People actually ask questions. They would be interested in a lot of things which our product would deliver to them. So that really helped in generating the leads. And the third part of events would be more on the customer engagement / pipeline acceleration part of it. So the reason I put all of this in one bucket is this is where our own events would help. So let's put in a exclusive invitation only event. Maybe you call in just 30 of your accounts. Some of them would be the prospects which are in, say, deep conversations with you. You call them to be a part of a panel, a session, which is moderated by maybe a customer. So a customer kind of leads into it. They discuss their success story. They explain to the audience how they have been able to get those results using MoEngage. So nowhere it is a direct pitch. And this is something which the Middle East audiences, at least as far as I was concerned, as well. They love the customer stories. And most of those sessions are followed by, say, 30-minute question and answers where people ask, how did you do that? How did you do this? What happened before and after? Why did you buy this platform? Did you consider alternatives? And since it was an invitation only closed door events, actually helped the brand prosper because the customer is talking about a real life scenario using MoEngage as a software. And this is where maybe the prospects would get interested and it would create healthy conversations. So as I said, the summary is brand awareness, demand generation, and customer engagement. These are the three pillars around which the field marketing or event strategy would be based on.
Got it. Have you seen any kind of a major, when you talk about pipeline acceleration, right? I think the third part is what you talked about, pipeline acceleration. So do you think pipeline acceleration, is it better to attend events, right, where your prospects, right, who's in a later stage of buying cycle comes in? How do you find them out? Versus how do you do a separate event and then invite them into an event? Like what do you think has worked? I mean, there are two things, right? So you also mentioned do your own events, which is exclusive. Okay. And I've seen a lot of companies attend events where my prospects are going, And again, right, there are, like you said, there are two objectives, which is one is demand gen. Predominantly, a lot of people focus on demand gen as the predominant objective, number one, because I want more leads, more leads for my sales team. So that's the probably the 70-80% of everything money spent on events, right, goes there. Then comes the pipeline acceleration, right? A lot of companies I've seen, they have, people don't take the pipeline acceleration very seriously, except for companies which are very matured, like MoEngage, and some companies which are like a 50 million, 40 million above kind of a range. They have money, they have a budget to spend, right, to kind of push the pipeline acceleration. So, what do you think has worked for you? How do you measure that in terms of how do you get the ROI measurement in terms of all of these three? Can you talk us a little bit in terms of what you have seen, based on your experience, the return on event spend, the return on field marketing spend, right? What is the average, like, you should look at? Is it like money spent $1, get $1 back, like $2 back or $5 back? Or typically there is a ROAS, right, for especially for ads. What have you seen has been the trend for, especially for Middle East and Africa? And where to put that? The question is always like where to put that money on, and which you kind of put it in three different buckets, right? Which is brand awareness, demand gen, and pipeline acceleration. I have very little money. The question is, I'll reframe the question. I have very little money. Where should I put money on for now?
This is a good question. So, firstly, thanks for pointing out that not a lot of companies are focusing on pipeline acceleration, and it's rightly so. So, if a company is at a lower scale of maturity, I think for them, getting more companies or more prospects in the funnel is a bigger priority rather than accelerating them. And often they feel that once you're talking to someone, they have the ability either through their product or either through the sales team to probably close it. So that's not a focus area. However, as with the changing times, we are seeing that getting new leads or getting new business with the fall in demand has been slightly tricky. And this is where, say, moving existing leads down the funnel or existing database has gained more traction. So thanks for pointing that out. Now, you spoke about budget allocation. It's a very, very tricky thing. So, as a typical marketer, I would always say that budget allocation depends on case to case. But I'll like to break it into how I would approach it. So, first thing is looking at past data. How was your funnel? In a particular market, was leads the main goal for you? In another market, maybe you needed more or pipeline acceleration, as we spoke around it. So the budget or the kind of activities you do would be based on that market. Second thing is going beyond the data. Your data will give you, say, the gaps, whether your MQLs are there, but you're not moving them to SQLs, or maybe you're having opportunities, but not able to close them. Maybe your sales cycles are long. Maybe your brand awareness is less. Those is mostly something which data can cover. However, there are certain aspects which data won't give you. And this is where you need to talk a lot to your on the field stakeholders like sales, SDRs, partnership folks. This is where what do they need to achieve their goals. For example, one of my sales heads for a particular country would say, I have everything sorted. I don't need anything. I just need a bit of brand presence out there. So that is particularly his need. He has been there day in and day out, and he knows what is the gap. Maybe in a different market, someone would say, I need a lot of content. Our content is not there. So can you help with this? So those are the different things. And these won't probably come out easily in your CRM data. So those are certain qualitative aspects that you have to look at. And then when it comes to allocation, I would say typically for a regional marketing, 30-40% of the spend would go on events. The next 30-40% would be on digital. And when I say digital, it's the entire spectrum of it. So your Google, your Facebook, your LinkedIn, even say content syndication or sponsored media, say working with a third party magazine or publication where you do some sponsored stuff with them so that you reach their audience. They already have a captive audience and you kind of leverage there. So all of that would come into the 30%. The rest 20% I would put into content and PR. It depends on the markets, but then certain markets you have a high spends on PR, certain markets you might not spend on PR. And I would say as a big tip for upcoming regional or field marketers is put some small part aside for buffer. There are a lot of ad hoc things that would come, lot of last minute requests, lot of changing dynamics. You would have budgeted something at the start of the year. but something new happened. It could be an entry of a new competitor. It could be a new technological nuance, something like a chat GPT, which would change the dynamics. And then the third party would be your own personal situation. The company has gone through a pivot, and that's why you need to do something. So that buffer is very important. So that's how I see breaking of a budget. Anything else, if I missed, I'm happy to elaborate on.
Got it. Okay. So now let's also kind of try to help early stage companies out, right? So in terms of budget allocation. So as an early stage company, and of course, right, you as an early stage company, you want to crack the US, you want to crack India market, and at some level, these are the two main preferences for a lot of companies. Somebody who wants to enter Middle East and Africa, and reasonably with very very less budget, where how do I start? Right, and I will probably give you a classic example of how companies start when they start, right? With low budget. Probably email is the best channel, right? You start with email, right? Slowly do a little bit of SEO, organic, right? Create social content, like which is all organic, right? So with lesser budget, it's always, and probably with you have little budget, then you start spending money on demand capture, right? So typically a lot of money spent on search, right? So Google Ads and stuff. And when you have a little more extra budget, then people also start spending money on LinkedIn and other stuff, right? So then if you have a larger budget, then you would start doing ABM, multiple channels and stuff. And a lot of the times people want to get the SDR stuff also, right, which is typically outbound. So for a company with limited or no budget, how do they start? With where do they invest in? How do they start? It could be as simple as get an email tool, get some data, start some outbound campaigns like cold email campaigns, or it could be like get an out. You said WhatsApp is big, right? So how if you want to start a WhatsApp campaign, or like what is your suggestion? Like how do you start with very little budget, with a little medium budget, and with probably a higher budget? Okay, let's say three things. Okay, little budget is probably less than a lakh per month. Okay, to spend. Medium could be anywhere between 1 lakh to 5 lakhs a month. More could be plus 5 lakhs like per month spent, which is probably 100K yearly. How do you spend this money?
Great question. And again, I think I would say it depends on the kind of company, the kind of resources you had. But let's break it into those three parts. So if you're entering a new market with a smaller budget, I think the best way to go is maybe start with your, say, organic stuff like email. If it is possible, get a clean list of accounts you need to pursue, because you have a limited resources. Rather than spreading yourselves thin, why not focus on, say, the 20 or 50 accounts you're likely to win? Maybe try to segment them into companies which are more likely to come. It is based on some kind of research, whether they are looking to buy, maybe there's some kind of change within a competitor has left, there is a renewal of contract. So those are some of the smaller things you can start with. You can support that with, say, a mass or generic outbound campaigns, where you try to capture the demand, as you rightly said. So when you're going with a smaller demand, I think creating demand would be slightly difficult, or maybe improving that brand awareness is slightly difficult. So you try to leverage the global strengths you have. Try to use it into small buckets, email, outbound, and if possible, you can decide whether to do a bit of digital or maybe just do one event. Now it's always tricky because one event typically without any follow up is a big pain. But then sometimes if an event is well chosen, and if you can arm it with the right set of email and outbound and the follow-ups, and if you have someone who can spend some time there post the event, that can work out. To give you an example, in one of the earlier companies, I was working for iCertis, and that time Middle East was an underpenetrated market for them. So it was not something that they had done anything apart from having, say, a basic list of accounts which would be a target for them. We never had put in a lot of money. We never had any content. We never had any presence there. So this was how we did. Middle East is known to be a very partner-led, partner-driven. Since it's relationships that value, typically most of these larger companies would have some kind of partnerships built there. It could be a tech partner where you probably going with someone like a Microsoft who has a decent base there or decent pull there. It could be with a local agency or a channel partner who might know a lot of people and they are going to resell your solution and probably even provide services for your solution. That is also one underexplored part of it. Though it might not come directly under marketing, it's a part of a GTM strategy which might work for a newer market. So is there a way you can attend a very famous expo with a partner. Their partner is front ending, and probably you send in your one salesperson. So that's a GTM motion we have tried out in a market like South Africa, where we didn't do anything from a marketing kind of thing. Partner was front ending at an event. We had our sales guy who was then happy to undergo meetings, do the demonstrations, and maybe do those follow ups 10 days after that event was over. The second example was an icertis kind of scenario where we joined hands with Microsoft. Microsoft had a huge pavilion at a huge expo called GITEX. So we took a small space out there. Icertis as a brand was not well known out there, but being a part of the Microsoft pavilion meant it attracted a lot of eyeballs. So that helped us create our basic list of people who could probably buy a solution like Icertis. So that helped us in getting a discovery of accounts there. Post that
Right.
event, then it was mostly an outbound approach where you kind of follow up with those accounts who visited us. You also get a list of accounts who probably visited the Microsoft Pavilion, and then you do mostly the free email outbound or maybe one-on-one personal thing. Especially in a newer market, the volumes are less, so the one-on-one approach can really work well. Now, let's say you move to the next stage where you are slightly having a medium-sized budget. So you can add digital to this mix. So now maybe you're attending with a partner, doing an event, doing an outbound. So why not surround it with some kind of digital air cover? Is there a way maybe 2 months before the event you can warm up the audiences? Try to bid on say your competition, your product specific keywords so that people start seeing you. So once they are part of your once they land upon you, then they are part of your retargeting list. Obviously the targets or rather the metrics you measure is not the revenue or pipeline. It's mostly around say how much traffic is increasing from a particular country. Are you probably getting more inquiries organically, even though they might have not come from the paid part of it? There is a chance that the paid has influenced those organic inquiries. That would be at a medium scale. And finally, the large stage would be you do all of this, that is partner led approach, event, digital, but then you add the content and PR aspect to it. Because most of the countries at an initial stage do not have the bandwidth or the resources to really create content for a particular market. But once you plan big, you can actually do that. So, can you work with a local media company or a local, say, magazine to create a joint survey? It could be benchmark report. You could sponsor a huge report for the region that actually helps us get a lot of eyeballs. And since you're partnering with a big media entity which is big in the region, it actually helps in the distribution angle also because they have their set of faithful readers, subscribers, and their support to you actually helps in increasing your brand awareness. Then going into PR, where you put in a lot of articles in say tier one publications, it could be newspapers, business magazines, particular industry specific websites, and so on. And that helps. And then armed with a bigger budget, maybe you can plan one big event, one small own event across say a period of 6 months. So if you have a big event, you get more eyeballs, then you try to capture a niche out of them, then invite them to a smaller event, and then surround them with say your digital, your outbound follow-ups and all of that. And then you have a partner team to maybe follow up with them. So all of those things really help. Again, it depends on the industry, it depends on the kind of solution you are. But I think this is my take on the small, medium, large budget, especially
Got it.
entering into a new market.
Absolutely makes sense. Thank you for watching, guys. Please subscribe to Rev Growth and stay tuned for the next part of the episode. Thanks again for watching.